Hey, Pete.
Hey, Hunter, how you doing today, buddy?
Good. Good. Hoping we can actually make this podcast.
Well, it's so far so good.
Okay.
Hey, bud, thanks for coming on my Travel Wins podcast. Can you give me a 60 second spiel about the background of Hunter Cure?
Okay. Hunter Cure, 34-year-old professional rodeo cowboy, father of two, two-time world champion steer wrestler, husband, father, believer. It's about the nuts and bolts of it. Try to show up every day to work and improve on one aspect of life or whether it's personal life or professional life, and try to improve something every day, even if it's only a little marginal win for the day.
There you go. Hey, just to give people an idea, how many days a year are you on the road?
Last year I was on the road 186 days. And that fluctuates a little bit depending on scheduling, but it's 150 to probably that 186. That was probably about as much time as I'd spent on the road in a long while.
Yeah, that's a lot of time. That's, even for me, that's a lot of time.
Certainly.
What do you think's the hardest part of traveling for you? That would probably surprise, an average rodeo fan.
The amount of time that you may be going in between two places, but not actually getting any rest. That a person might have a 700-mile drive in between two rodeos, and while you may sleep along the way, you certainly don't get much rest as it goes along. And
yeah,
I think they would be amazed on how many times that we're required to show up at 8 a.m., do our job, and still be running on fumes from the night before.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's a bull rider, Tony Mendez, and he came. I think he came in second at the Salinas Rodeo, and I asked him out for dinner. And he goes, "I can't. I'm driving to Cheyenne." I go, "When?" He goes, "In about 15 minutes." And I was like, "Whoa!" So yeah, he had to compete the next day.
Certainly.
That's a rough gig. I don't think a lot of people appreciate it, but hey, when you travel, 150, 180 days a year, do you have any hobbies that you work on, or that makes the drive or even flying go faster for you?
I haven't in the past. I've usually either spent the time with a book, with an audio book, or scheming about some business venture that I may want to be a part of in the future.
Yeah.
But I guess right now what's weighing heavily on my mind is I'm coming out with going to film for an instructional steer wrestling DVD and online broadcast to help young kids get into the sport of rodeo. So I'm trying to plan out in my mind the things that are going to be involved when the film crew shows up, so I'm not wasting their time and mine.
Have you done anything like that in the past?
I have not. In a few of the other disciplines in rodeo, such as team roping or calf roping, they've had some DVDs come out in the last 5 to 8 years that were pretty good, especially now with the availability of drone footage. But there has not been a really good instructional DVD done for my event, at least in probably 20 years. And certainly it was on VHS back then, the last good one that was done. So I'm hoping to improve upon that just with technology and perhaps a different way of speaking about it to hopefully get through to some younger people.
Well, I'm excited to see that. I can't wait to get the background of why somebody would jump off a perfectly good horse. So,
well, not all of them are perfectly good. That's why you probably ride them all the way back into the arena at full speed.
So you'd rather jump on a bad steer than a bad horse, huh?
No, sometimes it's safer.
Well, I can't wait to see that. That sounds exciting, though. That's it's exciting to see that you're branching out in you know, in a different field. That's something you haven't done before.
Certainly. And so to answer your question on the downtime of traveling, at least for
Mm-hmm.
the current mindset, and it will probably occupy me through the summer as far as editing film clips and stuff like that, that a good portion of my time in the near future is going to be diving into this instructional DVD to hopefully get it on the shelves by October 1st before the holiday shopping season starts.
Oh yeah, you got to get out before NFR comes.
Certainly.
That could be a big plus for you. You know, I know you've been around cows your whole life, ranch life, and even doing rodeo during high school. Did you think when you graduated high school, did you think this is what I'm going to do, or were you just going to go to college and figure it out, or where were you headed after you graduated high school?
Well, I always thought that rodeo was going to help me pay for my college and let me get a degree. And then what my true passion was coming out and through the most part of college was I wanted to come out and design fighter planes at Boeing or a Lockheed, something like that. But as fate turns, I spent more time in the practice arena than I did in physics homework lectures and things like that. And I ended up graduating with an economics degree and not a mechanical engineering degree. So kind of life has its turns along the way that you may not see coming, but as long as you're willing to adapt and roll with it, I guess it can work out even if you never expect it.
It always works out how it's supposed to be, regardless. You know, it's interesting. I go down to Calexico for part of my territory, which is, I mean, when I say it's on the border, I mean it's on the border of Mexico. Mm-hmm. But I drive down the 8 freeway near Navy Air Station El Centro, and twice now when I've gone down there, the Blue Angels are practicing.
Nice.
And I always pull over and just listen to see where they're at, and then I see them come later. Mm-hmm. I love watching. I used to watch them 30 years ago when they would come through Orange County at the air base in El Toro. And, they used to fly so low to come in over the runway that they actually blew out some of the skylights in homes as they were coming over to the runway.
Oh wow!
So they actually had to let them. They had to make the deck, I guess, or whatever. They had to raise the deck because they were popping windows. That's how low and fast they were coming through. That's pretty cool, though.
I've always been amazed with the sheer power of the American war machines.
It's unreal.
So I'm drawn to that, but at the same time, I have appreciation for the men that fly them. But I always wanted to be more in the design phase of it. But things are different. So
it works out how it works out.
I guess
I know the feeling. I didn't think I'd be doing what I do for a living when I graduated high school. I'll tell you that.
I believe it. But, I always felt like I was too small to be a steer wrestler. And even when I graduated college, I guess each layer of professionalism that you try to go up from high school to college and college to the pros, the amount of time that you spend with your craft increases, but also the humbling nature of moving up a level.
Yeah.
That from high school to college, my first year of college, I couldn't win anything and felt like I couldn't do anything right. And then, my second year and through when I graduated, it rose and was really good. But then from college to stepping into the pros, man, I realized how much I really didn't know about my craft whenever I had to do it on a more full-time basis.
Yeah, and your income depended upon your success.
Certainly. So that the learning curve is a pretty stiff one here. So you either get with it or you get out, one way or the other. So.
Well, I run the same thing where I run people now and they'll be like, "Oh, you're so lucky. You got a great job. You got good accounts. You got good territory." And I think back 10 years ago, no one was calling me lucky when I was struggling trying to make something work, you know. But I think
Certainly.
a lot of people look at just the success and they see where you're at now. And they don't necessarily see all the struggles along the way.
Certainly. And while every struggle when you're starting out seems like a huge hurdle, but as you get a little bit better, I guess you would say, no matter if it's sales or rodeo, that the struggles might become smaller, but the decisions that you make this year will have an impact on you 3 and 4 years down the road. So the small decisions now certainly have big consequences later.
Let me ask you this question. Not too often you get a chance to talk to a 2-time world champ at anything, much less a real sport. Did you have to redefine your goals of what successful is after you got your first world championship in 2013? How do you continue on? If you hit your level, how do you maintain that, and also how do you get new goals?
So I think you're speaking more to the current struggle I have now. That after I won a world championship the first time, I felt like I was invincible, and that there was nothing I didn't want to do more than win a second one just to prove a point, I guess, that I was fully capable. But as life has its funny twists and turns, in 2013 I won the world the first time. In 2014 I was having the best year I've ever had in my life, and then my back started hurting and ended up having to have back surgery 2 months later. And so that was a huge letdown emotionally, and it took all of the rest of 2014 to recover and try to get things moving in the right direction again. But it actually allowed me to refocus for 2015, and for lack of a better term, I just entered 2015 in the new year. It completely pissed off that I felt like 2014 was supposed to be my year as well, and it was deprived of me. So I had some tenacity about me the entire year, and then ended up going into the finals. It was a pretty tight race, and at the end I won it. And but then 16, 17, and now 18, I felt like that maybe in 16 and 17 I took my foot off the gas pedal just a little bit, that I didn't need to drive this car as hard as it around every twist and turn in order to keep that same level of success. And I feel like that this sport is much like all the other professional sports, that the minute that you take your foot off the gas pedal, that there's a younger guy that's just now finding out how to push it harder to come and take their place. And so I'm actually just now finally finding that gas pedal again and starting to put my foot down on it a little bit. So,
well, hopefully it pays off going through the summer. You going to be up at Cheyenne Frontier Days, and you hitting all the big ones?
Certainly. The only one in question right now, and it's always depending on dates and how circumstances line up, is Salinas, California. I like that rodeo. It just sometimes it works for the schedule and sometimes it does not. So, but Cheyenne, all through Utah, Nampa, Idaho, busy time of year there.
I'm interested to ask a steer wrestler, do you like Pendleton?
The answer is yes. It's probably one of my favorite rodeos, but it's not for the actual competition.
Right.
Pendleton brings its own, I guess, situational difficulty to the competition itself, because it's played on a football field, basically.
Yeah, it's a grass field, yeah.
And it's certainly hard on your ankles, and it took me, I think, 5 or 6 times of showing up there and losing to finally make a game plan that would work. Just because I needed to make I needed to make some subtle changes because skiing on grass is different than skiing on dirt. So
I was going to say, you get some some of the grass cleats put on the bottom of your boots.
oof, boy, that sounds
It'll
like
be
a
no.
great way to have something hanging. Hurt joint. That place is hard enough on my ankles anyway.
I
Even when
couldn't
I was
imagine that.
successful, I felt like it took 2 weeks for me to be able to walk without a limp.
Yeah, I watched the final round there, and there's so many holes for the steer wrestlers. God, you got to think your knees, your ankles, your hips. You get popped in one of those holes at the end of the rodeo.
Certainly, it hurts, and it certainly hurts more if you miss on that grass field than if you miss on dirt.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, let me ask you this then. You travel so much. How do you balance your work, family, lifestyle?
that is certainly the hardest part of this job. As I have 2 kids now, a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy, that the balance between being gone and also being an active father is certainly a struggle, and being a part of your marriage is even difficult, because even when I get home, I give, it seems, the bulk of my time to my children, and sometimes I forget the fact that I've got to be a married man first.
Yep.
So, and my wife needs just as much time. So some guys are able to take their families on the road because they're financially able to do that, so that their wife doesn't have to work and things like that. I'm not in that position in life. My wife has a corporate job for the largest privately owned renewable energy company in the country. And so she's very much in corporate America, and I'm very much gone half of the year.
Yeah.
So, it's a rat race. But
Oh yeah.
I tend to, when I'm home, I take my kids to school every single morning, and usually pick my boy up from daycare every afternoon as well. So I think it's different for every person, but you have to find the balance that works for you.
Yeah, I hear you. Here's a question I don't think I asked you last time we spoke. What's one thing you have to do for your job that you're uncomfortable doing? Is it signing autographs? Is it interacting with fans? Is it the waiting before the rodeo starts? Is it waiting afterwards? Is it, whatever it is?
I guess more. It's changed as I've gotten older. It used to be fan interaction. I was not from a big town or was ever around large groups of people very much until I went to college. So in the beginning, it was more on, interacting with fans, because they really didn't know who I was. And certainly I wasn't used to being in any sort of, spotlight per se, however small it is on the rodeo schedule. Now it's one of my more enjoyable aspects, because it kind of lets me come out of my shell a little bit and not be so introverted all the time. I would think now probably one of the worst aspects about it is the dead time in between running steers at different events. The 700-mile drives, and that is probably the one thing I probably dread most going into this summer ahead of me. It seems once you get in the rhythm of it that you kind of become numb to it, and it's just part of life. But it's probably the most unenjoyable thing heading into a summer run that I can think of.
See, that's literally how I got into photography, because the drives for me were the same way. It's just like I kept looking at my phone going, how many more miles? How many more hours?
Mm-hmm.
Now I can look around and now I'll take some different roads just to see if what's down there to see if I can take a photo of something. I had to find something to break up the drive time. It was killing me.
Certainly.
Yes. For me, you have a bad appointment, you don't make the money, and you got to get the hotel and all that. And so for me to sit back for 6 hours of driving and think about how much money I did not make, I had to find something. So I had to be able to find a travel win somewhere, whether it's a good sunset or meeting somebody at a small cafe. So that's why I try and put things into small little perspectives of wins along the way. So I don't just look at how much money I made that day.
I actually really like that mentality, or that outlook on it, that you try to find the small win every day, and it helps to break it up. So I think I might steal that and
come on,
try to apply that to what I do. Not necessarily the photography thing.
No.
Anything. Just the win, the little bit of a win.
Hey, my win today was my account was only 20 minutes late instead of an hour like they usually are.
See?
And I didn't hit any traffic on the way home. So
okay.
That was literally my win for the day. It was like, okay, it was a good day today. So that way it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously I got to pay the bills. I got overhead just like everybody else, but I don't get so wrapped up into it that I freak out when I'm at my client and my customer, and I don't try and grind them down for every single penny because the last guy didn't buy anything from me. So just a mentality stuff.
I guess I would have to say that my win for the day was I picked back up a horse of mine that I used to own previously. I sold him probably 5 or 6 years ago, pretty much when he was towards the end of his career and couldn't take as many miles as I was giving him. I sold the horse, and I just now picked him up today in Oklahoma. So he's going to come back to my house and retire. So
that's nice.
He was the first horse I made the national finals in Las Vegas on. So he's kind of I've got a soft place in my heart for him. And
I hear you.
It's going to be kind of special being able to take him home and retire him. So,
I appreciate having a horse sound on my podcast in the background. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're very, very much still at the rodeo, just in Guyman, Oklahoma today.
There you go. It's always.
If you hear screaming in the background, it's my son. He came with me, and he's running around the truck right now, having a big time putting him to bed.
That's the way it's supposed to be, though. He's 3 years old. Got to let him run.
That's right.
One last question. What's the best travel story you've had so far?
Boy, that would be hard to tell.
PG.
That's PG-13. Best travel story so far.
We're not talking mechanical bulls. None of that stuff.
Well, that's probably a lot more PG than some of the stories that instantly come to mind. I would have to probably have a little more prep time to think about that one.
All right, fair enough. I'll do a follow up with you after NFR then.
Okay.
Hey. So I overly appreciate the extra time to help me figure this out, because this is something new for me, just like your instructional video coming up. Hey, do you have anything you want to plug, or what's the best way for fans to stay in touch and see what's coming up for you?
So I would say social media is probably the best way to stay plugged into where I'm going and how things are going along the road. We're trying to do a better job on Facebook and Instagram at Hunter Cure. But certainly I need to do some posting on my website, huntercure.com, as well, as soon as I have my travel schedules for the weeks. So.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best of luck coming up with the upcoming summer. I'm sure I'll see you. If you head over to Salinas, let me know.
Yes, sir.
I'll try and get up that way. You come down to Mission Viejo too, though, don't you?
Yes. Okay. I didn't get to compete there this last year, but I will. I'm going to do my best to be there with bells on this year.
All right. Well, I don't know if I want to see the bells, but I can't wait to catch up with you in person.
Certainly. Terrific.
All right, buddy.
You have a
Take
good
care of
day.
your son, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Hunter.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.